Should come up with like a California Coddles rap. We're the California Coddles in Zeus. We planet from the Sunshine State. That was awful. That didn't even rhyme.
That was so terrible.
That's not the
I think the
career
beat
that we
was
can-
off.
Yeah. Our first episode.
Let's go.
Welcome, everybody. We are the California Coddles.
Let's go.
We started sharing some content of our story
Yeah, we did.
on Instagram. And now we want to go deeper, more
Yeah,
than
you started
90
the day in the
seconds.
lives
Yep, day in the lives.
with California Coddles, and so many people. It's like I walk in places now. I've been doing content for almost a decade,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like California Coddles, which Esther's been doing for like a month and a half. And I was like, I think there's something here.
Something here. It's
Yeah.
also really cheesy, and
Yeah.
the cheesy names just catch.
They really do.
They really
Yeah, I'm cheesy by nature. It's
Yeah,
very
you are.
unique to see you get behind something that's cheesy.
You know, it really is the Lord. Gotta
She's
give him
usually
all the
too
glory.
cool for school, so
I am, which makes you not relatable. So today we are going to talk about something really cool that has become a new part of our story in the past couple months.
Yeah.
So before we get into it, though, we'll give you a little teaser and let you know that this episode is brought to you by the 7 Peaks of Influence,
let's go. I'm wearing the shirt.
or the 7 Peaks, which is what, babe? What is 7 Peaks?
Yeah, 7 Peaks of Influence is a nonprofit that Esther and I started, and we're on a mission to impact 7 million people over 7 years.
Yeah.
And 7 Peaks of their life. It came in a time of my devotional with God, and he spoke to me and said, you and your wife will build this. So we just launched a couple weeks ago. We're at about 180 people in there.
Yeah, well, we can't give them too much away. We want them to stay
It's
and
kinda
hang
like, yeah.
around, watch the
But babe,
full
where can
episode.
they go to find out more about it?
Yeah, so essentially it's a faith-based personal development community. And if you are interested in learning more, go to 7peaksofinfluence.com, right? 7peaksofinfluence.com.
7peaksofinfluence.com. It's
Yep.
free to join. And we're just on a mission. We believe that there's a gap right now between personal development world and the faith-based community, and we just want to build a bridge. We want to make that information accessible to everybody so you can go crush it in your life just as we've learned to do. And we want to share our transformation and what these
Yeah.
things have done for us.
Yeah, and so I think today this episode is going to be all about how we shut down a 6-figure business.
Yeah, so the
started
title of
nonprofit.
this, we closed down multiple 6 figures of income to start a nonprofit, which
Yeah.
makes zero sense.
Exactly. And I think, it's important for us to be open and honest and vulnerable with our journey, because people are in a similar space, maybe not, with a business that they're going to shut down, but
Yeah.
in transition and maybe feeling God stirring something in their heart. And so, maybe we can take them back a little bit, roll back the months. We just got married in January
Yep, January
in
15th.
Hawaii.
Best day of my life.
It was the best day.
Second to give my life to Jesus. Like
Yes,
really that
yeah,
night when I
yeah.
was 24 was pretty
Mhm.
iconic.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I'd say
for
close second was marrying you.
Wow. Me and Jesus are neck and neck.
It's right there.
It was amazing. And I feel like life since getting married has been an adventure, to say the
Yeah.
least. Yeah, so maybe let's kind of roll back the months and ask, I want to ask you, what did you go through, and like what did you feel stirring in your heart? Because I've only ever known you to be just like a business head honcho, go get 'em, ambitious. I'm going to be a millionaire by 30. And that's great. Those ambitions are great. But when they're not surrendered to God fully, and if you're not walking in your calling fully, then you're unfulfilled. So maybe you could share a little bit about that story.
Yeah, I think I've always been driven. That's probably one of the biggest things that attracted you to me. And gentlemen, take note. Women love a man that's driven in life and knows where he's going. I think I always thought I always knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. I always knew I was going to be a business builder at a young age. I always was drawn to those people. I was always drawn to people that won big in business. And as I've gotten older and developed a relationship with Jesus, I'm also drawn to people that put God first in every area of their life. And I think for me, we've had several companies. So if you go into when we're married, we've had the content agency, which you've been a big part of. Over the last several years, the agency blew up with you stepping in and helping build that business with me.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, I started working with Cody when we were only like 6 months into dating.
Probably before that.
We're gonna do a podcast episode on that because it was
Yeah. So like if you really want to get an ROI, you find the talent, you date her, and then you hire her and you get her at a
I didn't
lower
realize I was being
cost.
recruited.
Just kidding, just kidding. No, I really wanted to get Esther out of the employee world. She's always been entrepreneurial and she's been an author and creative, but she still was, had jobs and things and was confined by that. And I wanted a wife and one day that built businesses with me. So we did that, right? And we created and grew Content Daily and our agency. And so we made a lot of money, just for those of you that don't know, doing content for people, building brands online, going and shooting the video, editing the video, writing the copy, posting.
That was our life.
That was our life. Like Esther, when we first started dating, we'd be driving 2 hours into Palm Springs to go to one of my attorney clients and literally shoot content and run their social media, as we'd be like texting about, did you post this post? And it was fun. I think for a season, I think Esther never loved it. And I don't think I ever was like in love with doing content for people. I think I've always been good at building businesses and seeing the trends and knowing that was a great opportunity for us to create and make an impact in the world and make good money doing it. So you go into our wedding and we still have this agency. It's become hybrid though. We don't go shoot content anymore. We've developed a very hybrid model where the content comes to us. We edit it, we post it, we do the social media management. And then we launched an AI startup last year, Leadflow Academy. We kind of combined high ticket coaching with artificial intelligent lead generation software, and we were crushing it in that business. So we have these two businesses going in to get married, right? And I looked at Esther beforehand and I put my priority on marrying you. I really think I did a good job of that. In spite of all this going on, I was like, I'm going to focus on marrying you and give you the wedding you want and be fully present, have the best honeymoon ever. And we did all that.
We totally did. I feel like we took an entire month of January just like reveling. Because I mean, we also fought a lot of battles to get there. I mean, we'll also do another podcast episode on that. That was a journey to get to our wedding day. And so you have to stop and enjoy it. But then you told me on our honeymoon that once we got back, that it was time to go to war.
Yeah.
Literally, verbatim. Those were your words.
Those were my words. And then what happened when we got home?
You share with the people, babe.
Yeah. All right. So my mind as a man, I'm like, marrying Esther, making that a priority, doing it right, being fully present, giving her her dream wedding. Roger that. After that, I thought it'd be smart to tell my wife, because it's important to tell her the seasons we're in. I need you to give me permission to go to war. And what that means is go crush it, go build big. We were on a great trajectory with our companies. Content Daily was pretty much autopiloted. We just had to bring more clients in.
Yeah, I was kind of managing the content agency at that point.
Yeah, but we had teams in place. We had employees that did everything and all the work. We didn't work in the business, just on it. And then we had a Leadflow Academy, which was on a great trajectory, bought out a business partner. We're full owners of it to build and to, probably even do $3 to $4 million, to be honest, in that business if we'd stayed on the trajectory. And I just got home and God had a different plan. And I really felt God's presence on my life. And I've just been such in my devotional time with him every morning. And I heard the Lord say to me soon after we got back that I'm not to go to war in my first year of marriage with you, which completely contradicted everything I told you on our honeymoon.
Yep.
And I looked in the Old Testament, and I don't know if you guys know this, but in the Old Testament, the Jewish people kind of had a tradition that men were not to go to war in their first year of marrying their wife. And you could probably argue, because there was a lot of wars fought back then and people died, that it was so they could like procreate and have, a kid or something to carry their family name on. But for me, I believe it was spiritual. I believe God was telling me he had something else in store for you and I. I believe he wanted me to focus on laying a firm foundation and a solid table for our marriage.
Well, I also think it's because you were so obsessed with building and you were so obsessed with business. That's how God wired you. But I think he needed to tell you to not go to war so that you would stay home and receive the word that he had for you. Because otherwise, you would be burning the candle late into the night, working so hard on building this business, which essentially kind of represented your own kind of like empire and your own dream.
Yeah.
Even though like we always prayed and we always brought God into it, there was something else that God wanted to impart to you.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think he wired me this way but he wants me to build his kingdom, right? He wants, that's what we should do. Everything we do should seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. And all of these things will be added unto you. And I think there were still parts of me that wanted to build and do things the way I wanted to do it. But yeah, now I know why, right? Because in that, okay, God, I'm not going to go to war. I remember going to you and sharing this with you, and Esther didn't actually understand it at first.
Yeah.
So, like, what was that like for you being my wife? Like, because I think we just heard my perspective, but what was it like for you being my wife? We just got married. At my honeymoon, I tell you this, we get back, this is going on. Like, what was going on in your mind?
Well, I think that I've always been a cheerleader and your biggest, fan and support. And so my initial reaction is always to support and say yes and be like, okay, like, how do I support you in that? How do I come alongside you in that? Especially if God's, telling you that, then I'm like, well, I can't really argue with him.
Yeah.
So I think that was my initial reaction. But then, I didn't really know what that fully meant because I was just so used to you building business and, us making a certain amount of money. And so I had that same expectation. But as the weeks went on, it was very clear that God was steering our boat in a new direction to which I did not anticipate the winds of change. And it was great.
Yeah.
But I think that that's really the adventure of faith with God is just, sometimes we think we know more than we do.
Yeah.
And I think you're kind of out of alignment with like God's plan when everything is predictable and anticipated, not out of revelation, but out of your control and out of kind of what you're forecasting and what you're projecting into your future based on your own desires. So when I got to this place where I'm like, what is even happening? I told you one time, I was like, I don't even know what my future is about to look like. So that's like very uncomfortable. But I trusted you and I trusted God.
Yeah, it's so good, babe. Thanks for sharing. And a few key things happen around this time frame. Number one, we have the content agency, and I felt a stirring that God was kind of something wasn't right. I was like, man, we need to set something down. Like the word of God talks about pruning dead branches so new things can grow. And I saw a vision of a plant in my hands that I had grown that I was really proud of. So imagine like you plant a seed and you grow a plant, it produces a couple fruits on it, and you're really proud of this plant that you've grown. And I saw a vision of letting the plant die and new nutrients going into the soil for something new to grow that was going to be 10 times bigger and produce 10 times more fruit. And I go to Esther, I'm like, hey, I think we need to fast. Like, I don't know about you guys, but one thing that has always worked well for me when I need clarity on something is to seek God. But one of the best ways to do that is starve my flesh so I can feed my spirit. So you just hear from God more when you fast. So I invited you to do a 2-day fast with me. Mm-hmm. We fasted. And what came out of that fast, babe?
Well, I was expecting all of the answers and a full vision, but really what came out of it was just like confirmation that we needed to shut down one of our businesses, the content agency, and just peace to keep moving forward and keep seeking the Lord, knowing that something new was on its way.
Yeah, and what I think is cool to note about this is we didn't have this crazy vision from God while we're fasting. But afterwards, at the very end of it, I wanted to ask some questions to her and talk about some things. And there was just a very easy agreement. And the word of God says that God blesses a man and woman when they're in agreement. And Esther and I just were in agreement that even though it financially didn't make sense, we needed to shut down content daily. Mm-hmm. We felt that the energy and the time and the effort and the headache and the worry and all of the things that were going into it were sucking nutrients out of something else God was trying to do in our life.
Yeah, absolutely. And full transparency too. We started to see that God's favor was not on it anymore.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Because like we we've had favor in that business, like
We've had so much
supernatural.
favor, yeah.
But over time, we saw that business getting smaller. So there was also a trajectory of knowing like a few things were happening. We didn't have as many clients, so the income from it was dropping.
Mhm.
And the only way to increase that is go produce again, go make more sales for the company.
Which was actually very easy for us to do. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, we're built like
we're built for it.
Yeah.
We did it over and over and over again. Transitioned. We created online courses. We created 6-week programs. So
but we
knew how
lost
to
our
do that.
zest for it. There was something
yes.
and especially in me, because I'm the producer,
Yeah.
I'm the one who does all the client acquisition. I lost the fire to go sell this business and to produce and to bring more clients into it. It didn't align with my spirit anymore.
But I want to kind of go there a little bit more, because how do you know the difference between just losing like your motivation to continue to build business? Because let's be honest, it's not always easy.
No.
It's not always like, oh, the favor of the Lord is on it because I'm making 6 figures. Like, how do you, because you could even be making 6 figures and God's favor is not on it, and you don't have the joy, and because it's not fulfilling and there's something missing. So how do you know the difference between being lack of motivation, but still God being like, come on, like press in, build this. I put my favor on it. And you really being like, no, God's nowhere in this.
Yeah, well, I think it's important to know that business is hard regardless. And if there's a stay in the game protocol I live my life by. If you just play your own game and stay in the game long enough, you're going to win. Yeah. The truth is that with even that, if Esther and I stuck with Content Daily's agency side of the business and persevered through the storm and continued to do certain things and stay in the game, the business would have jumped back up. It was doing about $300,000 a year. We could have got it back there and even beyond that. So I think it's important to know that the lane you're in, if you stay in the lane and you know how to produce in the lane, and we've produced a lot in the lane, you can continue to produce. But then there's this other side of revelation from hearing from the Holy Spirit of God. Is this where you want my time, my energy, my momentum to go into? Right. And I think for me, it was hearing from the Lord of, Cody, I want you to lay this thing on the altar. Mm-hmm. Because what I have is so much more. And there was a trusting God moment. Now, I don't think we can speak fully into that, because I think that's an intimacy. When you seek God, it says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, right? Mm-hmm. And when you receive wisdom, you get understanding and you get discernment. I think in order to make a decision like that requires discernment. And the only way to get discernment is through understanding and wisdom, which comes from the fear of the Lord, which is nothing more than, God, I don't want to be apart from you. I want to have a relationship with you, and I'm not going to sin to create a separation. So I think for me, I'm in an intimacy with God because I really started to live that out. Yeah. And then I started to hear from God, and my discernment told me to shut it down, to talk with you about it. The world didn't tell me that. Financially, naturally, it made 0 sense. It was still producing 6 figures. But the Holy Spirit said, I need you to trust me.
Right. And I think that in that there's practical things that you do. There's wisdom that he gives you in practical steps to take. But it really is something in your heart and your spirit that it doesn't translate into I just watched, this video.
I do have something practical. We work with Daniel in the 5All group. Yeah. One practical thing that happened that really created this and also led to 7 Peaks was they take us through this whole operating system, and we identify like our personal operating system, our business operating system. And part of that is hours and hours and hours of Zoom calls, diving deep into like not surface level core values, but truly like what your pillars and values are to build your life on. Oh. And then we go into the vision for our life and our life purpose. Like, what is the actual purpose of your life on this earth? It was the most in-depth we've ever gone. Mm-hmm. And what my life purpose is, I exist to elevate the belief systems of others. That's it. My whole existence is predicated on that one purpose that I found for myself. I truly believe that I have a natural gift from God to elevate the belief. So to raise a standard, the belief system is the way that someone sees the world, and the system is how they live it out practically. And Esther, what was yours?
To inspire people to dream with God.
So good. So we identify this. Here's a practical thing. Identify what your life purpose is the best that you can. You can reach out to Daniel Wilgenbush at Bible Group. You can find him on Instagram. Tell him you watched this California Coddles and Cody and Esther sent you. And you can work with those guys if you want to hire them like we did. It was really the best thing I've ever gone through. But one day Daniel was on a call with us. And Daniel said, Cody, I just want to ask you real quick. We're doing all our business goals and quarterly planning and all that. And he said, do you feel like your life purpose, I exist to elevate the belief system of others, is fully being expressed and lived out through your businesses right now? And I couldn't tell him yes. The truth is, I sat there and I was like, oh my God, no, I don't. I think there's moments of it. I think there's moments I run calls and coach clients and things that I feel like I'm doing that. And then I heard a podcast. I don't remember what podcast it was. There was something in the podcast where they said, like, you found your purpose when you're willing to die for it. So I'm thinking these thoughts. I'm having this revelation from God. And I'm also thinking, oh my God, my life purpose isn't being expressed through my businesses. And then I'm like, I'm not willing to die for content daily.
No.
This isn't a purpose I'm willing to go lay my life down for. It's just a great business model. And I love what we do. And I love our clients.
Yeah, and I think that there's things that we're also stewarding in business that we're called to be faithful with and we're called to be diligent with, but it's not our purpose, right? I mean, like most people, they're living in a lifestyle that's maybe not as entrepreneurial and they're not able to create their purpose as their 9 to 5 or their
Yeah.
job, right? So I think there's kind of like there's room for that as well. Is you're going to be called to steward and to be diligent with something, but you're still fulfilling your purpose there.
And I'm so glad you brought this up because the thing that like feel like your purpose is on earth doesn't mean it has to be your profession.
Exactly.
And I think just to make this very clear, guys, I think there are many people who are faithful with what God has given them in their vocation, which enables them to live out their purpose over here.
Mm-hmm.
A good example is Pastor Colin Higginbottom and Melissa.
Mm-hmm.
They own a construction company doing flooring at a very high level, like $50-80 million plus a year business. And they've been very faithful with growing this non-sexy business. And they have been able now to step into pastoring and launching a church under our church in Boise. And they don't take $1 from the church for being pastors. They probably sew in about $1 million a year into the church. So you take this thing God gave them, they were faithful with it, they multiplied it, and now they're able to live out their purpose from the freedom and the platform they built with it. And I thought that's what I was going to do. Babe, that's what I thought I was going to do. I was like, God, you're going to show me how to crush it and make millions of dollars. I'm going to buy a bunch of real estate. We're going to be financially free. Me and my wife are going to go do ministry work all around the world because we've built this empire that enables us the freedom to do it. That was always the plan. But I also believe sometimes this purpose, I was trying to do it my way. And God said, their model isn't your model. And I'm calling you to this purpose now. Mm-hmm. And I know you want to make millions of dollars. I know you want to be successful in business. I know you want to speak on stages. But if you're just willing to lay that down for me and build this purpose that I've given you, that I've entrusted you with, I will bless it. Mm-hmm. So I think I had to change our trajectory.
Yeah, and I think it all started with changing your heart, being transformed. And I think about Romans 12 and how it talks about don't conform to the patterns of this world, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Yeah. And in that, you will know what the good and perfect and pleasing will is of God. And so that really is that, like, if you feel that stirring on the inside of you, that you feel called to more, you feel a lack of fulfillment, you feel a lack of fulfilling your purpose, then maybe that's a sign that there is a little conformity happening in you, whether it be in how you're walking in relationships, friendships, in your workplace, or not fulfilling a God dream that God wants to birth out of you. And so in that, when we seek the Lord and when we start to have revelation in these areas, that's when the transition happens. But it doesn't always happen like, oh, I know the next step, and so now I can let go of this. No, it usually happens with like,
and I think you got to dig too, like, don't mistake something being hard and difficult as a revelation from God to change what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so easy to
Yeah, you can
like
be comfortable and
be
living your best life.
challenged. I think it's and I think on double fold, I think you could be so comfortable that you miss the revelation God's trying to give you.
Yep.
I also think you could be so uncomfortable in a process God has you in or
Mm-hmm.
doing something that you change what you're doing, saying,
Right.
"Oh, God doesn't want me
Oh,
to do
God's
this because
not
it's
in
hard."
this. Like, I just don't feel his grace. Yeah,
So I
everyone
think
says that.
I think I love hard things. So for me, when business gets hard, I kind of, even though it sucks, and then maybe
Yeah.
I complain a little in it, I deep down love it. Like I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have it any other way.
Mm-hmm.
I persevere through that storm and get so strong and learn so much, and I know breakthroughs on the other side. But there is sometimes that there's a stirring in the spirit. And I think you have to dig in that yourself and go to God. Like I had to go to God so much and be like,
Mm-hmm.
God, if this is what you want, give me a sign. God, if this is your vision, truly show me. And argue with him almost. I'm like arguing with God, y'all. I'm like, God, I love you. I'll lay my life down. If you're calling me this, I'll do it. But like I need to know that I'm not making a mistake. Like I need to know. And God gave revelation through a period of time to where we shut down content daily. We started a nonprofit, Seven Peaks. Our main distribution channel with Leadflow Academy, we just shut it off, our biggest source of income. And now we're seeing the favor of God. We're seeing the favor of God on that. Still, we're not making as much money as we used to, but that's okay because we just feel God's presence in his hand. 180 people, I think like this morning, 178 people lives we've already started to impact, babe,
Yeah. So
in 2 weeks.
let's even share that. So now, we kind of let you know at the beginning of this episode that we started something called Seven Peaks, faith-based personal development. But really, what the reason why we went from this shutting down our revenue streams to starting a nonprofit is because we saw a gap. We saw a gap in the personal development world, which is where you really came from,
Yeah.
and the faith community, which is where I came from, growing up and doing ministry, missions, being, in working in the church and in nonprofit world. I did all of that, and I'm like, yeah, I'm good because you don't make money doing that. But it was so fulfilling. And I knew from an early age I was called. But yet you came from more of that business background, not knowing really how to step into the call with the gifts that God gave you for business. So we're like, hey, we need to put the two together because both are lacking the what each other has to
And I
offer.
really feel like we've created and merged the two
Yeah, we
together.
really did. And it's pretty wild, like how fast. I mean, within 3 weeks, we had website branding. And in addition to that, I mean, we started the Christian Entrepreneur
Courses
Club.
that people have given up with
Yeah.
mentorship calls, private community.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe let's talk a little bit about what is Seven Peaks and
Yeah.
how, like, what we offer and why would someone want to get involved
And
in
I would
Seven
love to
Peaks?
share how we merge the business side too with Christian Entrepreneur Club because we do
Yeah.
have a 4 service in it.
Right.
Because people are probably like, well, how are you guys going to make money?
So let's share the peaks because entrepreneurship is one of our peaks.
And we'll go into that, after it.
So the peaks are faith, relationships, leadership, wellness.
Yep.
What else?
So you got, faith, relationships, wellness, leadership, entrepreneurship, money, and adventure.
Mhm.
Now, guys, we break this down inside the community. We're actually about to upload a video from our first call of going deep into this. So there was a prophecy that the next move of God would happen in the marketplace. We know that. And if you've ever heard of the 7 mountains that are talked about in the Word of God, there were very prophetic people, I believe it was in the 70s, that talked about how these 7 different mountains were the influential spheres of society and how Christians were called to occupy those spaces and bring God and his presence into them. And, media and arts and entertainment, education, medical, church, religion, family, these different areas. And I thought when I first heard the 7 peaks that we would just follow the model of the 7 mountains. And God told us to go to the peak, right? Like what's the top of a mountain? A peak, the highest place of influence. But as I was dreaming with God, with Esther, we really talked about really what do we see are the areas that Christians need to grow in the most to live a fulfilling,
Yeah, and I think
thriving
that
life.
resonate with us.
And I think there's a modernization too. How do we reach the generations today?
Right.
How do we connect with you guys right now? You might not connect with the 7 mountains but I know that these 7 peaks
Hmm.
will change your life if you thrive to the peak of that area in your life.
So within Seven Peaks, it's a free community. We don't charge a thing.
No, anybody can join. You guys can go to
Yeah.
Seven Peaks Influence right now, join this community, get access to all of this today, right now.
And another thing I want to say, because people watching this may not know us, may not understand what that looks like, but they might come from the business world. And majority of free communities are a funnel to get you in
Yeah.
some like a higher paid thing. And when we looked at this, we said this cannot be tainted by a motivation
Yeah.
to make money in how we serve.
And
Now
this,
wait, I
wait,
want
no,
to say, because with that, I want to say that like making money is not wrong and serving people to make money is not wrong.
not at all. And even
It's
the
not
word
wrong.
talks about the seed sower, or the seed seller should be paid well for his seed.
Exactly. So I think that people need to really hold value
But
to
but
that.
let's talk about what inspired it. The reason is we have big influence online.
Yeah.
We have big followings on social media. We build businesses, and we get direct messages every day and text messages from people reaching out to us to speak into their life.
Right. Because you come from the business world where people.
But even beyond business, I've been a motivational speaker for a decade.
Yeah.
I've spoken on hundreds, probably nearing 1,000 stages, physical and virtually, speaking motivational messages. Long before I had successful companies, I was a speaker. I was building my brand. And I began all of this to inspire people to become the best version of themselves. It has grown into now when people message us, there's that natural inclination when you own for-profit businesses to see if your offer, your service aligns with them to sell them it.
Mm-hmm.
And I got convicted the other day when I got a text message from an old friend of mine who's strung out on drugs, who's struggling in life, who watched me change my life. And he's like, "How did you change your life?"
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted me to speak into that. And even though I send some messages and encourage, there was still that natural,
Yeah.
well, are you a good fit for
Mm-hmm.
my coaching program?
Yeah.
And God convicted our heart that everyone should have access to a community and resources and information and wisdom to allow them to live a thriving life. It shouldn't just be a funnel that someone has to go into to buy your stuff. There's truly needs to be a place that's a safe haven for
Mm-hmm.
people.
Yeah. So I kind of want to wrap this up with, so let's actually share with them what's in the Seven Peaks community and the ecosystem, because it's really interesting how we have this community app where people are connecting from all around the world. So what is it that we actually offer through Seven Peaks?
Yeah, that's great, babe. I'd love to hit on that. So first and foremost, we built a community that you'll get free access to on a really cool platform. And there's a phone app, you can access it on your computer. And it's kind of like a clean version of social media for like-minded, faith-driven individuals to come together. So there's threads you can post and share posts and ideas. There's message stuff, and it's kind of where we collaborate with one another. Inside of that platform, we also have courses. So what I think is really cool is all of these influential Christian business leaders and thought leaders and experts in all these different peaks are beginning to donate their courses to the nonprofit. So thousands of dollars of courses and curriculums, you can access all of that in there. It's kind of like a Netflix of stuff that actually makes your life better, completely free, PDFs, just all kinds of stuff. And we're still building it out. We just launched, but our goal is to create the largest free faith-based personal development community in the world. And then we also run monthly mentorship calls.
Yep, we just had our first one yesterday.
It was amazing.
Yeah, it was really awesome. And what's cool about those calls is that we share for a time, but then we go into breakout rooms because we want to hear from the community. We want to get to know you. We want to hear your story, and we want people to connect, because there could be some people in your either your network, your industry, or your city that you can make a new friend.
Yeah, so that's amazing. The calls, and I think I have a vision, and we'll see what it grows to, of having calls every week that people are running that are experts in these different seven peaks. So we have relationship calls. Maybe Esther's running that. She's really passionate about that. We have calls about wellness and health, and you just have access to get free coaching, to get free mentorship in all these different areas of your life. So we got the community, we got the courses, we got the calls. What else do we have?
Yeah, then eventually we're going to offer a Seven Peaks book. that is going to be kind of like
A
their
workbook.
workbook.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. We want to create like
Yeah.
a true manual on how to thrive in the 7 peaks of your life. And that's a project Esther and I will create together. We'll come out
Yeah.
with it. The digital version will be free. We'll have to have people pay for the physical version because, you know, it costs us money to print it, make it, and send it to you. But it'll just be something really cool that we didn't regurgitate information. We truly biblically base how to grow in these areas of your life.
Right. Yeah. And really, it's all about learning how to be a kingdom builder, how to dream with God into whatever He's called you to. And one thing that I love this saying that we've been saying now often is, "Are you living called or comfortable?"
Mm,
And I think that that really speaks to the person who is in whatever sphere of influence that they feel called to, but they're living comfortable like we were.
yeah.
You know, so maybe that's you listening and you do feel called, but you're sitting back and you're holding back.
Yeah.
And so we want to invite you to join us in this process. Like we're not perfect, we don't have it all figured out, but we're learning and we're sharing the wisdom that God has given us. So
Yeah.
we'd love to invite you into that. If you feel compelled and you feel like challenged to start putting your head down and asking God, what have you called me to, and how can I live this out your way?
Yeah, it's so good. And we can put the link in the YouTube video as
Yep.
well for you guys to click. Or you can go to 7peaksofinfluence.com. And I think we'll share probably a lot more on other California Coddle videos.
Yeah,
but
we will.
this was fun.
This was fun.
First one, let's go.
Cheers.
Guys, like, subscribe, share, whatever they tell you on YouTube. Show us some love. Show Esther some love. She's pouring her heart out in this as her husband. I see it. And we really just want to reach people around the world and help you guys win in every area of your life. So I love this, babe. This was fun.
All right,
Peace.